Hey guys, it's Cyze. So, with Dragonflight coming right around the corner, literally the next 2 weeks, I have been meaning to redo my UI, and it's something that's been on the top of my list. But as you know, with real life and even in World of Warcraft, the things that are normally at the top of your list end up getting pushed down due to other things, unforeseeable things. However, I have finally got around to sorting out my UI. I think I've got it right where I want it, ready for Dragonflight. I've customized it for Warlock, Priest, and Evoker. All three pretty important specs that I want to be looking at going into Dragonflight. And I think I'm ready to share it with you guys. So the main purpose for this video is to generally go over general UI knowledge, talk about why I've done what I've done with my UI, how it's important, what I track, how to track it, how to make your UI look relatively streamlined and efficient, because quite a few of my viewers are new to the game. They may not have experienced messing around with the UI before, they may not have had much experience in making their own UI, and therefore have been using standard Blizzard UI, which, whilst does the job, doesn't necessarily track all the things that you want to be tracking, especially when it comes to raiding, Mythic Plus, PvP. So I'll generally go over what I track and why I track it first of all. So to track what I track, I use an add-on called Weak Auras. It's relatively simple to get an add-on installed. You can get it straight from CurseForge, the website, and you can download it and put it into your add-ons file in your retail World of Warcraft folder. You can also download something called CurseForge, and that means you can pretty much straight away dictate which folder your add-ons are going to go into. You can install them through that application. You can update them very quickly, daily, depending on how often the add-ons get updated. And let me just go through a list of the actual add-ons that I have for this UI, just so people can have a good understanding of what I've got going on here. So, first of all, I personally have been using Big Wigs and Little Wigs. They're boss mod add-ons. So this means in raid encounters or dungeon encounters, these are the two add-ons that I use that tell me what a boss is going to cast next. Really important abilities, whether it's going to be a silence, if it's a stun, if it's something that I need to burst down, if there's something I might need to use the defensive on. These are the add-ons that are going to let me know. And I have them set up pretty neatly in this UI. Let me just get it up for you now. So if I do moving anchors, you can see all on my screen I've got emphasized messages at the top. This means anything important is going to flash up in the top, big writing, maybe a sound you can have to go along with it, make it stand out a bit more. I have in the bottom right these bars here above my details frame, and if I click create test bar, it'll allow me to put down a little list of test abilities so you can see them as well. So these bars time down and they disappear as they get more, and when they become more frequent, they come up in the top here. You'll see green test with a skull marker and a little sound that comes up with it. It means that you can allocate noises to these bars. So for emphasized bars, you'd be able to enable them. You can have them grow upwards if you want them coming from a different direction. You can emphasize at a certain amount of seconds left. So I like to emphasize abilities with about 11 seconds left. That gives me enough time to think about what I'm going to do next, think about positioning, and think about how I'm going to react to this ability. So Big Wigs, Little Wigs. Big Wigs is the raid variation, Little Wigs is the dungeon variation. Pretty important if you're new to the game. Means that you don't have to learn all these abilities and keep them in the back of your head. Whilst that is a good thing to get into, it means that you have a little bit more of an opportunity to actually plan ahead and become comfortable with the game as well, as you're learning your class, your spec, all the other important things that you've got to get through. So the overall add-on. The overhaul that I use is ElvUI. It's got a lot of stick in the past for taking up memory using a good bit of RAM, but they have improved it as time goes on, and a lot of people have ditched ElvUI for the standard Blizzard UI that they've made going forward into Dragonflight. If you want to do that, by all means go for it, but I really like ElvUI. I've become so accustomed to it in the recent times, over the past few years, that I know the ins and outs. I know how to use it, I know how to set it up. It's very quick and easy for me to dive in and change something or tweak it a little bit, compared to some other add-ons that take a little bit more practice. But if I get it up on the screen for you now, you can see yourself. All these on the left hand side, you've got general, action bars, bags, buffs and debuffs. Everything's on there. It's an entire UI overhaul add-on. So specifically, if we look at toggle anchors, you can see how many things there is that are actually tracked on my screen. Top right, you've got the mini-map, less important for content, but it's usable. You know, when you're doing quests, when you're leveling up, it'll show you and highlight little icons on the map that you can go to, especially quest icons, rare mobs. I have my player frame and my target frame. I have my boss frames and party frames on the left. You can move all of this around however you want. I prefer it like this because it looks neat, it looks clean, and it's very easy for me to see what I need to see very quickly. So if I'm in a Mythic Plus dungeon, I know exactly where to look to see my buffs. I know where to look to see the enemy buffs. So for example, if I pull this target dummy here and get some dots going, I can see all my dots just above my main HUD here. So this is called weak auras. All of this in the middle is weak auras that you can see, and even the little track buffs there. Again, makes it very easy for me to know my agony is about to run out. I can refresh it, unstable affliction, and refresh it. And this little icon that's going to come up here now, this one, is my demonic synergy. So this increases my damage done by 10%. So this icon shows me that I've got 10% increased damage. If I have cooldowns to use, I might want to unload them while I've got that 10% increased damage. Whereas in the past, all of your other buffs are tracked up here in the top right by your minimap. When you're looking at a boss, and it's right in front of you, and you're moving, you're dodging mechanics, you don't have time to look up in the top right minimap. Unless you've become accustomed to that, weak auras makes it so much easier to be able to put your notifications where you need them, when it's easier to see them. That's why I've got my UI like this. I think it's more efficient. I think it helps me a lot more in the content that I do. And as well, being able to track all of my cooldowns. So if I go ahead here, for example, and use up all of my abilities to get my horns up, Vile Taint, Dark Glare, see how long my Dark Glare's got left, and it actually desaturates the icons here. So this is another weak aura setting. You can desaturate your icons so you know when it's not usable. Again, it's got a timer on it. That's just double dipping, making sure that you know it's desaturated for one. You can't use it. But if you weren't to desaturate it, you've got the cooldown there so you know when it's going to be available. And just below my target bar here on the right, I actually have a combat timer. So, for example, it's at 1 minute 41 now. I know that in 2 minutes my Dark Glare is going to be available. So maybe I want to be looking at the 3 to 4 minute mark as to where I'm going to use my next set of big cooldowns. Again, takes some getting used to. You know, it might not be your cup of tea, but for me, this has worked for the past few years. And whilst I've always changed around the HUD, how it looks, the central UI, it tracks everything that I need to track. It does all the important jobs. And it's specifically tailored for caster DPS. It can work for any spec. You can make the weak auras for any specialization. But for me, this is what I found works best for caster specs and dot specs, specifically looking at the Affliction Warlock and the Shadow Priest, as it enables me to track my dots a lot more efficiently. And of course, there's a lot of UIs like this out there. This is the standard UI. A lot of people that use ElvUI use it and make a variation like this, so it's a more central UI. Completely up to you. But this is how I've got mine set up. If you want to, get ElvUI and mess around with it yourself, I think it's a good habit to get into. It's a good practice, as it enables you to get deep diving. You can specifically target things that you want to see. You can add in things. You can take away things. It's very, very nice. You can change the way your action bar looks, your cast bar, your nameplate. You can have icons. It's completely up to you. So that's the thing about ElvUI. It's all about choice. And ElvUI isn't the only one out there. You've got ElvUI, you've got its partner Tuck UI, which is a little bit more lightweight than ElvUI. But moving on from ElvUI, I could do an entire video about it, and I probably will going forward. But for now, I just want to show you my general UI. So, details. Little damage meter in the bottom right that you can see over here. It tracks all the damage you do in raids, dungeons. You can have it reset. I've got it as transparent just because I like it. It looks clean. It's the same as the... You can't really see it, sorry. Let me move my camera for 1 second. My chat box on the bottom left. It's quite neat. It's quite clean. And it tells me everything I need to see. So, damage done. Healing done if there was any healing. Enemy damage taken. And the nice thing is about details is you can click into it and you can actually see your damage breakdown. So for those of you that have seen my dungeon videos in the past, this is how I check my damage breakdown. Some people like details, some people don't. Some people think it takes away from the mechanical aspect of the game, where people focus more on damage than mechanics, which, fair point, some people completely do. But that doesn't have to be you. Instead of looking at details as a negative thing, I tend to look at it as there's a lot of amazing things that details does. It tracks all combat aspects, so not just damage. It can track your buff up time, your debuff up time. You can compare yourself to other warlocks, other monks, other warriors, whatever class you are, and you can see how many casts you did of a certain spell and how much damage it did to see whether it's a stat weight issue. You know, maybe you need to get more gear. It's very in-depth, and it's amazing for other aspects of the game as well, such as raid leading. You know, you can go into deaths, you can see what somebody died to, you can look at healing done, healing taken. It's an amazing aspect of the add-on, and I always love using this. I'll always have it, and yeah, of course, subconsciously you're going to be thinking, am I at the top of the meter, am I at the bottom? But that's something you can learn to overcome, right? That's completely optional. So, plater. I have my own plater as well. It's quite lightweight, it's clean. It tracks all the debuffs at the top of the target. You know, it tracks your buffs as well. So, for example, I have my Shadowy Embrace that goes on the target. Tells me that my damage is increased by 9% on this target, providing I keep it up at 3 stacks. Whilst you've got your centralized weak auras down here that track your debuffs as well, it's nice to have it on the target over here, because your centralized debuffs will only track the target that you're targeting. Whilst if I do this, for example, I can look around me, I can pan around, I can see that I have dots up on all of the targets around me, and it means it's a lot easier to track. It's a lot easier to track, sorry. English is hard. So I can see that all these targets have my debuffs up. I can see this target's about to run out of unstable affliction, so I'll refresh it. Agony, agony, agony. Again, it's something that you'll get used to the more you play the game, but this is a nice way to get into it, and a nice way to help, and that's why I have my weak auras like that and my plater like that. Another add-on that I like to use is Method Raid Tools. This is mainly in raids. It allows me to track big raid cooldowns. So if you're a Shadow Priest, Vampiric Embrace is on there. You've got the Devotion Aura, Healing Tide Totem, Revival, all the big healing cooldowns. Even if you're not a healer and they're not your abilities, it's nice to track them. So for example, I used to raid lead a lot, and I used to track them all the time, so it's just a habit for me now. But for example, it's a nice way for me to see if, for example, I need to call for a sacrifice, or a freedom, or a lay on hands, you know, or iron bark. All of these things you can track, and it makes you a better player by tracking them. As in a raid encounter, you can call for it if it's not been used, and it can potentially stop you from dying, potentially stop a wipe. It's a really important thing to have in your UI going forward, in my opinion. So, generally, this UI is pretty interactive. So, I got a lot of help from the Atrocity Discord, which is another amazing World of Warcraft player. He makes his own UI as well, and I got some help from the mods in there that told me how I can make it so that my cast bar and my soul shard bar actually dynamically move depending on how many weak auras you have. So if I run out of here, I can show you really quick. So at the minute you can see 2, 4, 6, 8 icons, top bar, bottom bar. However, if I was to dismiss my pet for a second, top bar gets a little bit shorter because I no longer have my kick on there. But you can see my soul shards move to slot in with it, and my dots do as well. So I've got my absolute corruption on here. My soul shard bar is there. I summon my pet again. It dynamically moves. Same with Shadow Priest. Same with the Evoker. If you add a talent or take away a talent, it'll dynamically change with it as well. So we've just took away Haunt. Move smaller. If I were to add on more abilities, for example, so if I had Haunt and Soul Rot, and I think that's all I can get with this, yeah. So if I had Haunt and Soul Rot again, you can see that it's going to move dynamically as well, and the Soul Shard bar is going to change with it, as well as the dots. It means that you don't have to worry about anything being out of sync, out of line, as you add on more talents. Even if you go fewer and fewer, if I take away Darkler, take away Soul Rot, take away Haunt, and I just go full passive. So I'm losing 3 abilities from the top bar. It still looks pretty clean, because your soul shards and your debuffs are going to move with it. You know, it doesn't look messy. I like it like this. It means that I don't have to worry about going on to a different spec, for example, with Destruction, which doesn't have as many weak auras to track. This UI still actively, dynamically moves. It's a really nice way to go about it. I think it's really clean, pretty slick, and now that I know how to do this, I can do it for the other specs as well. It's just something that I've learnt going forward, and I've been showed by other UI creators, and it's something that I've picked up that I think is really important. So, generally, that's all I really wanted to show you today. It's a little UI sneak peek, I guess. So my UI will be available for Twitch subs going forward. I have, however, said that until I hit a certain amount of people that are using it, I don't really want to do it behind a Twitch sub, just because it feels a bit greedy, you know, I'm still not perfect. But I do know that a lot of people have been asking for my UI, asking for my plates, or asking for my weak auras. So I thought I'd just go a step further and set it up for everybody that wants it, you know, to be able to test it out themselves, just to get it in one whole package, so that you're not importing loads of different things at different times, just to kind of be a bit more efficient with it. But with that, guys, that's all I have for you today. I will be doing more videos going a bit more in depth on the add-ons, talking about what add-ons I use, why I use them, how useful they can be, how it affects you in raids versus Mythic Plus, for example, what you need to track, why you need to track it. And hopefully it's a bit more educational for the majority of the people that are watching these videos, as I do think most of the people that are watching these videos are relatively new and they can all benefit from this. Of course, if you know what you're doing and you just watch my content just for the dungeons, feel free to ignore it all. You know, this is mainly for the new players out there that kind of have been asking for my UI and kind of want to know how they can replicate it or achieve the same thing. But with that, guys, I hope you enjoyed the video, and I hope you enjoyed the rest of your day wherever you are in the world. Thank you for watching, and take care.